I don't know if this thing works. Oh, yes, it does. I better give you a few moments to acquaint yourself with my white hair. Because that was about, I don't know how long ago, about 30 or 32 years ago. And, you know, I've been sitting back there laughing at the blessed thing. I believe the object of this is that you ask questions and I try to answer them. I'll make a detour around anything I can't answer, of course. Isn't that what we do here? Or, I've never done it before. I hear that I'm following Groucho, who was brilliant last week. What about it? Have you got mics? Oh, thank you. Hello, Eddie. How are you? Hi. I see a dear friend of mine, Eddie Robinson, sitting there. Hello, Harry. How are you? Other questions? I hardly remember it, you know. Yes, sure. Yes, would you like that?
You've done a lot of work for both Alfred Hitchcock and Howard Hawks. And they seem, according to their interviews anyway, they seem to have very different ideas about where a movie is made. And Hitchcock always talks about planning the movie ahead of time and then just following his plan. Where we saw Hawks at the USC 2 weeks ago, and he said that he allows his actors to improvise, you know, within the general conception of the film. I was wondering which way you prefer to work, and the differences in working for Hitchcock and Hawks. You seem to have a different conception of, you know, the character you should play.
Well, obviously, directors, like actors, they're all different. They're all individuals. All have their own preferences in working. I think where Hitch allows a great deal of invention, but he's also very careful that it doesn't disturb the mood that he intends to create. I think Howard Hawks allows a little more invention because we're dealing with comedy more than perhaps Hitch does. And comedy can hardly be, it is written, there's no doubt about it, and of course written extremely well by Hager and the people who wrote this, Dudley Nichols, who's alas no longer with us. And but comedy itself can't play the same as drama can, because comedy must be timed and doesn't always, is not able to state it on paper, the timing of the comedy itself. How's that? So that necessarily working with Howard is slightly different than working with Hitch, although they're both extremely capable directors. Of course, they're the best. And I had the good fortune always to work with directors such as Hitch and Howard, and Leo McCarey is no longer with us, and George Stevens. And those sort of men allow you a great deal of leeway within the bounds of their own needs. And they cut as they go along, practically, certainly, where Hitch is concerned and George Stevens. So but we feel comfortable with them, and we feel that we can be trusted, and certainly we trust them. I speak not only for myself, and many other actors I know who have worked many times with each of those directors. Would you like to pour on with the questions, or I keep on talking until somebody raises their hand? Sure. Yeah. Hi.
Yes, I was wondering how you developed a character for a comedy role. Did you work definitely for a very parody and then lapse back into, say, what would be a normal person? How do you work into a character for a comedy role?
Well, I think in this particular thing, I was aghast to find myself imitating Harry Langdon, I think. I don't know who I was doing. I was doing Harry Langdon or Harold Lloyd or a combination of Steve Allen, as I know him today, and all sorts of people. I was doing a sort of a peculiar little funny comic walk, I thought. It turned out to be not so funny. So that I was this sort of wild type of comedy. It was wild in those days, at least. Was out of my ken, really. I was kind of stuttering along as best I could. It's not the type of thing I do. I like to be as nearly me as I possibly can, which isn't always easy in our business, because I know that most people say, well, I'm sure there's lots of actors out there, but most people say, oh, it's so easy. He's just being himself. And that's the most difficult thing to be, whether it's here, and I'm certainly not at the moment, whether it's here or in just a room of 30 people, or certainly in a room that plays to 300 million, let's say, where you're not only yourself, but you're self-amplified. Your voice is amplified, and I don't know if each of you have heard your own voice on a tape recorder. It's sometimes appalling. And my old baggy eyes in the music hall, you know, are about 20 feet tall. So, but you get accustomed to that, and you go along with that. But to be yourself under those circumstances is an accomplishment, I suppose. I didn't answer your question. What was it? Oh, how I got into character for something like that, I don't know. I just hang loose and do the best I can with it. You know? I don't know anything about method or getting into character or working up to a thing or what's the meaning behind this. You just do it. You know?
Cheers. Mr. Grant?
Yes.
Out of all the wonderful movies you have appeared in, do you have any particular one that is your favorite, either from seeing the finished film or from actual experiences that you've had in the making of it?
Well, thanks, but they're all different, and I found all different happy experiences mostly. Oh, there's problems attendant with every picture, of course, and mostly technical. I find that I have a happy time on the set. I haven't been doing it in some years now, but the pictures I've liked many, many pictures for different reasons. Some because they brought a big fat lump to my wallet, and some because I enjoyed the company perhaps more than others, some because I enjoyed the leading lady, which one always enjoyed, and the director, such as Howard. I've worked with Howard many, many times, and of course Hitch, as you mentioned just now. So that they've all had different qualities of endearment for me, anyway. Shoot.
Mr. Grant?
Yes.
Perhaps they'd like to hear a little about your early career. I noticed your name at the Muni Opera in St. Louis, Mr. Leach in musical comedy, etc. Could you?
Yes, that's right. I was in musical comedy. I graduated from vaudeville, if that's graduation at all. And I was a straight man in vaudeville, which is perhaps the one who can learn the most about timing in comedy. I don't mean this immodestly, what can I say? But as a straight man, you time the laughs for the comic, and those are my early days. In other words, you plant the line, the comic does the punchline, the laugh goes up and comes over, and as it cascades down, you talk into it, and as it hits silence or moderate silence, you put your plant line into it because they don't hear it. His punchline is no good. So that you learn to accommodate according to the size of the laugh, and if the laugh has a resurgence, and sometimes they do, the back of the house would just get the thing, and you're caught. So you add a few odd words or stamp your feet or something and say, what do you know? And back into the plant. But unfortunately in films, since they're inflexible, you can't do that. And so that playing a film in the music hall, for example, where you have time for what seems to be some instinctive timing for audiences all over the country. And when I deviate for a moment by saying that in vaudeville one plays to, let's say in one day, 3 different types of audiences. You play a matinee, a supper show, I beg your pardon, I'm a little nervous, and a night show. And the different quality audience, so the shoppers during the afternoon, or the ladies who want to come in and rest their feet or something of the kind to keep cool of his heart. And then the supper show is very empty, but it isn't worth closing the theater. The manager feels there's a little revenue out of it. And then at night time, you get your hotter show and the brighter characters of that particular locality. But they change too. The difference in audience between Wilkes-Barre and Wilmington, for example. They don't laugh at the same things or in the same volume. So that you're timing constantly. Every show and then every theater has a different size audience. Now in films that can't be, because we like to play the music hall. There's tremendous revenue out of it. There's tremendous prestige, and also many managers book the film because they can see it there, and or know that he's had the choice of all the non-hard ticket shows, and therefore it's probably the best for their audiences too. So we don't have to hawk the film around. So we like to play the music hall. But if you play the music hall, your timing won't hold up in the Lux Theater in Philadelphia, which we also like to get, because there they'll play it for 9 months at high admission prices, but there are only 600 people comparatively. So that the laugh is quite small by comparison and possibly leaves holes in the film. In the music hall, on the other hand, the laugh goes up so big you don't hear the next 2 lines. So there's no way of changing our timing in films. And I think it's possibly why people are unlikely in these these very expensive times to put their money into comedies, because it's tough not to be laughed at if you make them. And the extent of a flopping comedy is immediately apparent. It's unlike in drama. A silence greets a drama. Unless it's a very intense silence that you can feel, you don't know how well you're doing until the critics have told you or the audience itself has told you by not coming in or coming in. But with a comedy, it's kind of embarrassing if they don't laugh. So you're unwilling to risk that. That isn't a very good answer, is it? Shoot, sorry.
Yes, why didn't you ever do any musicals? You sang very well.
I never could sing well enough. I went into musicals because, frankly, they paid more money than the drama in New York. I tried drama, and I tell you, the salaries are shocking, and still are. They're not too good. And the musical comedy salaries were higher, so I took singing lessons, and also Mr. Hammerstein became interested in me at that time. I was in a straight show, and I went into musical comedy, and nobody wants me in a musical comedy in pictures. Also, I think once you've done them, you can't get out. You're kind of caught with them. The only man I know who's become a very fine actor, and also was in musicals, is Frank Sinatra. He had to attend it in similar things.
Mr. Grant, I was just wondering, do you feel that there are not enough comedy directors today that are able to put on the different comedies?
I'll be frank with you. I really don't know much about the business today. I don't see many films. I don't know why. I've been married 4 times. I've seen plenty of bottoms. So that, well, a fair amount. And I don't go to many films. Perhaps I'm as I grow older, I'm having the interest that I had. So I don't know how many comedies are being made, unless all those are comedies. Sure.
Again, on the subject of timing, I realize that many films are done out of sequence due to budget problems. Do you find working out of sequence is difficult as an actor, following the storyline and things of that nature?
Oh, yes, I suppose it's a little difficult, but I don't find it difficult. You know what you're doing, and certainly the director does, and you should be acquainted with it. I think any time you have to stick on an emotion, then it's obviously stuck on the screen. You go along with it. You can pick it up from wherever it was. It might be difficult. There's a tremendous matching problem. For example, your hands up in the air or something like that, and you have to get that gesture right on that word to cut from the long shot to the closer shot. But those are small technical problems. Shoot.
Mr. Grant, I didn't... Hello?
Yes, sorry. Where are you?
Here.
Oh, hi.
Here, hi.
Hi.
Listen, I didn't see the movie when it came out, and I just want to know if it went over as big then as it did tonight.
Well, I don't remember that. I heard I really don't. I know it must have done quite well for RKO, who owned the film, and I don't know how its percentage of it was. I think I had a small percentage of the producer's gross, and I think it did quite well. I don't know. And then I heard criticism that the fault with the film was that everyone was trying to be a comic, and I think we all were.
Well,
I didn't seem to notice that tonight. I've only just remembered that criticism.
Well, I've never heard as much laughter in a theater as I did tonight. I mean it. It was just sensational.
Well, good. Thanks. Are you Terry Moore? Yeah. Hi, Terry. I thought that was you.
Mr. Grant?
Yeah.
Will you say something about your experience with None But the Lonely Heart, which I always heard was an unhappy thing for you, but it was an extraordinary performance?
Oh, not at all. It was a very happy thing for me. We're talking about None But the Lonely Heart. I made it many years ago before none of you kids were born. How dare I call you kids? And, no, I made it with a very dear friend. He, too, alas, is gone. Clifford Odets. And I had a marvelous time, and especially because one of the men here in the picture, Barry Fitzgerald, was with it. In fact, we were friends all through the picture. I enjoyed it, and it was the nearest thing to a serious role that I had done, I think. Or that I've ever done, as far as I know. Yeah. Thanks. No, it's really not true. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Mr. Grant, I was just wondering, did you ever say Judy, Judy, Judy?
Well, as far as I remember, I've never said it in a film. And the only thing that I say Judy, Judy, Judy. But when I do, I'm imitating the imitators. And I think that somebody, I think there's somebody, and it might have been Larry Storch. I've never checked it, and I should check it with him. Must have done a routine where they introduced different people to different people at a party, and they had me doing me, and Judy Garland came in the door or something, and I probably said, Judy, 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 in their imitation. I think the imitators have been imitating the imitators, because I don't remember ever saying it in a movie. I might have done, but I don't know where. But I've made about, I don't know how many movies, I can't remember them all. In fact, it's an amazing thing. I don't know how many of you have had this experience. Eddie would have, Eddie Robinson here. But I've sometimes seen old movies of myself, and I can't remember being there. I say, I'm a son of a gun. I can't remember standing behind that desk and saying those lines. And not too well either.
Mr. Grant, in this series that the Academy is screening, there's going to be 3 of your movies. The one that was shown tonight, and then they're going to show His Girl Friday with Rosalind Russell, and I'm No Angel with Mae West. In addition to tell us a little bit about working with Katharine Hepburn, could you also mention the other 2 ladies? And tell us how you enjoyed working with them?
And what did you say last? Forgive me.
And tell us how you enjoyed working with Rosalind Russell and Mae West in addition to Katharine Hepburn.
Oh, I did. Well, I worked with Kate many, many times. She's a joy. She's a great, great, amazing woman. And we started with a very ill-fated one called Sylvia Scarlett. And it's well worth seeing today, by the way. I saw it not too long ago, but just for the laughs, and it was for laughs. and I made a picture called Holiday, the Philip Barry play, and also a Philadelphia Story, which was Philip Barry's, and with Kate. And what else did I make with her? Something else I've forgotten. Oh, it doesn't matter. I beg your pardon? Philadelphia Story, and there was something else, and I don't know anyway. And then Irene Dunn, I made many pictures with Irene. We did a whole flock of stuff, All for Truth and Penny Serenade and things like that. And Myrna Loy, I made many pictures of Myrna early in her days. Mae West, I made a couple. Well, there's lots to be said about that. I don't know, who else was there? I forgot. I never worked with Claudette Colbert. I saw the other day looking extremely well, I thought. I beg your pardon?
I said, oh. I'm on now. You've never won an Academy Award. I wondered if you ever felt like you really deserved one and then missed out. I mean...
No, not really. I never thought I deserved one. No. I don't know what I think about that. I don't know how to say, what do I do? What do I think about it? How do you know what I think? You're not deciding me. Who said that? Did you say I do? Did you say that?
No, I didn't, Mr. Grant.
Sorry, shoot.
I had a question, sir, as the most brilliant farceur in Hollywood, as well as comedy. Did you ever find it difficult going from one to the other, wondering if something would be too big, too wild in a comedy that would work brilliantly in a farce?
You don't know, I tell you. And I found here tonight, I thought we overdid a lot of falls. We were always falling. I don't know why. We thought that was pretty funny, you know. Big flat fall, you know, big high Brody. We said, well, that's it. Now, Kate would do anything, you know. She'd fall any place. You give her a fall, she comes down mountains right on your head. She trusts you utterly, and I don't know why she trusts me. She trusts me on that platform. It's wild, you know, with that brontosaurus swinging in the wind. And I'm an old acrobat. I started as an acrobat. And I had told her, I said, listen, grab for my wrist. Don't grab anywhere else. Grab for my wrist. So that you're locked in. You can't do anything. So when I pulled her up, she was safe. But she was up there, actually doing it. Well, she's amazing, that girl. In Holiday, she did a thing. I used to do in vaudeville as an acrobat, where you take the onto your knees and up onto your shoulders. And I showed it to Kate, and we did it in the Holiday, and then we do a rollover from that position. She did it, just trusted me utterly. Incredible girl. And then told everybody she showed me how to do it. But that's Kate. Are you here, Kate?
Mr. Grant, is it true that Mae West discovered you for the movies?
No, not at all. Well, how did you mean that? No, I was in a show in New York, and I did a test with Jeanette MacDonald many, many years ago, and I was turned down, and they took Jeanette, so I stayed on Broadway, and well, naturally. And then when I came out here, a director called Marion Goering's wife was making a test for Paramount when B.P. Schulberg was then the head of the studio, and they asked me to make the test with her since I was more experienced than most of the kids they had under contract out here at that time. They always had a big stable of players. They could afford them in those days, and each studio had a great stable of stars and up-and-coming young people. So I did the test with Marion Goering's wife, and then they offered me a contract out of it, and I stayed with Paramount for many years. So that's what really happened. And then May came in later. She was doing those wild shows up at Data's Theater or someplace in New York, and they signed her up, and I think her first picture, she did a small part with George Raft. When she said, they complimented on her furs, they said, "My goodness, what furs," or something. I'm making that part up, but I know she said goodness had nothing to do with it, dearie. That's my small joke for the evening. Yeah.
Mr. Grant, earlier you mentioned working in musical comedy, and I believe you did several shows for the Schubert brothers, and I was wondering how well you knew them and if you have any Schubert stories.
Well, yes, I do. I heard many actors panning the Schuberts when I was with them. I don't know whether it was envy or the fact that they were employed by them. I don't know. Some people do that about their employer. I found them most agreeable, both of them. I was under contract to Mr. Hammerstein, and when he lost his theater, he had to get rid of his players, and he was having a kind of a scrap with Mr. Ziegfeld because Miss Miller wanted me to go and be a juvenile in her show, Rosalie. And so he sold my contract to the Schuberts. I think I was getting, well, it doesn't matter what I was getting. But it was quite a good sum, really, in those days. And although I can never live within it, God knows. And 10 weeks later, after our show had opened for the Schuberts, I had great disdain for working for the Schuberts. I wanted to be with Ziegfeld, you see. And so I had no fear of Mr. J.J. because they were beneath me, to me, you see, this poor young man. And but we got along fine. We always sat together, and I enjoyed him. And at the end of the 10 weeks, I was called into Mr. Lee's office, which is another building across the street. I don't know if you read the Schubert book. It's a very interesting book. And I didn't find those men like that at all. And although Mr. Lee and Mr. J.J. were not speaking, Lee, who held the contracts over in that office, said, "Where's that money we paid you extra?" And they'd given me $100 a week extra, which was a great deal of money compared to what I was getting. And I'd taken it for 10 weeks, and that should have been turned over to Mr. Hammerstein, but nobody told me that. And I said, "But I spent it." So he said, "All right, forget it." So that was a pretty nice story of Mr. Lee, wasn't it? And J.J. was equally nice. And I was in a show called, you wouldn't believe it, I was in a show called, first of all, we went into Atlantic City to open my first show with the Schuberts, and it was called Snap My Garter. And I said to J.J., I said, "Oh, you're kidding. I'm not going to be in a show called Snap My Garter." He said, "Oh, yes, you are." And I said, "No, I'm not." Take that off, but putting him on, you know. So he said, I'll deviate for one time. Jack Good one time said to J.J. Schubert, this was marvelous, there was a great hoofing act in the Greenwich Village Volleys called King, King, and King. The following year, they were doing a new show, and J.J. was asking Jack Good and myself and young Johnny Schubert, we were all together in the office, what acts he should get to pep up the show that he had. He was going straight in the Winter Garden with an opening there. So Jack said to him, he said, "It was a great act last year in the show, J.J." He said, "What was it? What was it?" He said, "King, King, and..." And J.J. said, "King?" He said, yes, that's right. And now what did I say? Oh, yeah, Snap My Garter. So this was all stenciled on the scenery. And I said, well, that's wild. That sounds like a burlesque show. And Mr. Ziegfeld, opened a show called Whoopee. And it was a big hit at the New Amsterdam, and we were still in Atlantic City. And J.J. changed our show to, would you believe it, Boom Boom. And that was the first musical comedy I was in on Broadway. I was in an operetta for Mr. Hammerstein before that. Well, that wasn't very entertaining, was it?
Mr. Grant, being able to master comedy and drama, have you ever thought of directing? Or have you directed a movie?
No, we had 2 or 3 occasions where the director kind of got ill at Archeo, and he went over. He got ill with me, probably. I'm not sure. And no, I think that the actors who have directed have been splendid. I remember back when I was a young man, we had a man called Lowell Sherman who was a splendid actor, first-class man. And he turned into a director, a very able one, too. In fact, he did Mae West's first film. She done him wrong, a smash. I don't think she ever had one quite as rewarding, thanks to Lowell. And then there have been certainly many great, even Paul Newman recently, you know. And Johnny Cassavetes, and many, many fine actor-directors. But there's nothing new in acting and directing, and nothing new in acting management, for that matter, because United Artists was formed by the greatest group of stars that existed at that time. Shoot.
Which roles do you prefer to play? For instance, sometimes you play the very rich businessman, you know, the world traveler, and sometimes you play sort of the blustering professor or father of 8 children. And I'm just wondering which roles you prefer. And also, are you a native of England or of America?
No, I was born in England. I had a terrific time for the first few years trying to suffocate my accent, and I put on very hard A's, you know. And now I let it go, whatever it is. I don't know which roles I prefer to play. They're all the same. I just do them, you know. And I do them all the same, I think.
Mr. Grant?
Yes, sure.
Over here.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if the right script comes along, if you're would consider doing another film, and also what your opinion might have been of Tony Curtis in Some Like It Hot.
Well, I liked it. I think Billy Wilder was giving it to me, you know. And so was Tony, because he turned out to be impotent or something very odd, wasn't it? Tony was imitating me in Some Like It Hot. And it was a pretty funny gag of that. And, oh, I don't mind. Tony, you know what happened with Tony? He was stuck on a submarine during the war, and they had a print of mine aboard, Gunga Din. And they got so sick and tired of the print that they turned the sound off, and each fellow on the submarine would play a different part. And Tony always played me. He knew every line. And since it was a kind of a Cockney role, he did me. Judy, Judy, Judy. Huh? What else did you ask? You asked something else. Oh, I don't know. I really don't know. And then at my age, it's getting, you know, there are only a few certain things that are suitable that anybody would want me for. Unless somebody wants to do the man that came to dinner and put me in a wheelchair, I'm for that. Do you remember the man that came to dinner? That's a good role. So that I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever work again. I have the vaguest idea. I might. Don't know. No.
Mr. Grant, you worked with my favorite director, and I was wondering if you could tell any anecdotes, either pro or con, on working with von Sternberg.
Oh, you know, he was a strange and a remarkable man, a very talented man. Yes, I worked in a picture called Blonde Venus with Marlene Dietrich, and he would tell Marlene what she had done wrong in the scene, or turn around and bawl me out, and then tell her what she'd done wrong, either way. And I found that had nothing to do with me. It was always Marlena, you see. He didn't care what I was doing, really. You know, and then he'd comb my hair over like this, and it stayed that way. Yeah, one day I combed it someplace differently. I don't know if I did in that picture. No, Blonde Venus came before that. And he just took a comb and did that, and he said, it stays like that. And it always stayed like that. Years after that, we had a picture called The Awful Truth. It was a big, big success with Irene Dunn. And we were on in those days we didn't fly to Europe. We were on a ship together, and I had been in with a group of people to see the film with him because the ship wanted me to attend. And when we came out, he was leaning against the rail, and he said to me, why weren't you that good with me? And I said, because you wouldn't let me. We became fast friends, and we were going that way, and we drove into Paris together. In fact, I saw him in Japan. He made a picture in Japan, and I was out there doing something or other a few years ago in Kyoto. He's really a very bright and extraordinary man. I haven't seen him in some years now. Yeah. Great cameraman, by the way.
Are you creatively active in Fabergé, or are you just head of it now?
Am I just what?
Are you creatively active in Fabergé, or are you just a figurehead?
Well, this depends upon what you mean by creatively active. You know, who knows the degree of that? I can't assess that. I think I am. I don't know what they think. No, I'm with the company. I enjoy it. It's a stimulating field, and actually, in merchandising, there's hardly any difference to this. What they do is they find a fragrance, and as we would find a story, let's say, they find the best chemists they can get for that fragrance, just as we find the best writers we can get that are available, and then they come up with something that we all sniff and carry on with, and as they come up with a story that's being formed in a studio, especially now with independent companies, and that one comes forward more than the other two, let's say, then you find a title for it that's merchandisable or saleable, and you make it on a stage rather than they make it in a factory, and then they find an advertising campaign for it, and we do. They ship it out in cans, we ship it out in cans, and they ship it to department stores, we ship it to theaters, and we take part of the department store's advertising just as the film takes part of the theater's advertising to keep it in there longer. So that actually the merchandising methods are the same. The distribution is almost the same. The problems are slightly different because the film industry, of course, is affected more by weather. If a woman runs out of stuff during the blizzard in the town, she gets it sooner or later and makes up. She has to use so much of it a year. But once the picture is out of that theater, those drive-ins, it doesn't come back again. So that revenue is lost. But we're affected more, the film industry is affected more by weather than a company like Fabergé. But actually, the methods of merchandising, practically all things are the same today. Isn't that a bore? Let's get on this. All right.
Mr. Grant?
Yeah.
Here I am.
Hello.
Getting back to the film tonight, I noticed from the beginning of the film, it was 50 solid minutes of the most uproarious laughter and really high-pitched comedy until you had your first soft scene, romantic scene with Miss Hepburn. Was that a common thing of films of this period to have such a fantastic pace in comedy, just laughter for 50 minutes? I've never seen a film like that doesn't let down at all for that long a time.
Well, there were many such films at that time, but then you must remember the audiences at that time were different too. And I think you're different tonight because you came in here geared to laugh. You expected to laugh. It's an old-time comedy. It's kind of Tilly's punctured romance or whatever you want to think of it. And in those days, they came in to laugh. The writers themselves weren't as seriously inclined. They have reason to be serious now. They're in a different world, and it's not as happy-making as it might be. So that I think they enjoyed comedies more, were able to enjoy comedies more. Oh, I agree. I think that's the best release there is. Yeah. I think it's much better to release emotions through laughter than through tears, because I enjoy that more. So that, a lot of fellas like to make them cry, or women, actresses, like to make them cry, I like to make them laugh. It's great. I want to tell you, there's no sensation like it for the actor. That's the reward, not the money one gets, so that goes with it anyway. The reward is that the people enjoy it, and you hear them laughing in the theater. And I used to stand in the music hall sometimes and see a close-up of myself just doing that, which would bring a laugh, or something I might have thought up even. And it's so marvelous that all those people concertedly forgot their own dirty dishes for that moment. A few of them maybe carrying a torch here and there or something odd that they're troubled about, but most of them forgot it for that moment. That's rewarding. Shoot. Sorry. Listen, do you all want to go home? Because, if you got buses to catch, it's fine. I understand. Huh?
No, I'd just like to know real quickly, which director allowed you the most creativity? Which picture were you the most free and most able to ad-lib?
I think this man, Howard Hawks. In fact, Howard some morning said, hey, well, what did you write last night? You got a scene for today? And I said, well, we've got a scene. Howard always had 4 or 5 scripts here, 4 or 5 versions, lots of jokes. And then he said, we've got a joke that goes in here, Wild things he came in. And then he would select from that, say, oh, that doesn't work. Let's try something else. Now, Howard was perhaps the most, who allowed us most invention, let me say. Shoot, everybody time?
Mr. Grant.
Yeah.
What weird locations have you ever worked on a picture? Which was the most unusual place that you've ever been or whatever had the zaniest time at?
Well, I'm not a location nut. It's only in recent years I've enjoyed being in the outdoors. I always thought it was very smart to shoot your cuffs indoors, and live at the Ritz. And I don't know, I needed status. I was quite insecure. And only in recent years have I enjoyed going out. Otherwise, I might have enjoyed the one picture that I didn't like was Pride and Passion. We made it all over Spain in uncomfortable circumstances, either too hot or too cold. And my costume I couldn't stand, you know. So that's all. I wish I could have done better, but anyway, thanks for coming and thanks for asking the questions. All right,